welcome back to the Hobby Lodge. So in today's video, I'm going to do a bit of a review of the Windows XP PC that I've been putting together. And actually there's two. One was an initial machine I had, and I'll show you that. And then the second one is the one I'm now running, which is a lot more beefier and there's a lot more to it. It's come up a few times because I've done videos on PC gaming back in that kind of, from 1998 through to 2008, that sort of 10-year period of PC gaming where I really fell in love with it. I mean, I'd always been a personal computer gamer, so from Commodore 16, Commodore 64, Amiga, and then into PC, the first Intel machines and so on and so forth. So for me, it's a really important part of my gaming sort of history. And recently, because I see them in the shops all the time, the PC games, like Star Lancer, an amazing video game if you've not played it. The theme park games, all fantastic. Unreal Tournament, my gosh, I burned hours playing this game, and the list could go on and on. I've got loads of them next to me, and they're all 50p and a pound, if not less sometimes. PC games can be 10p at boot fairs because people don't know what to do with them. You've got Steam, you've got GOG, you've got those other services out there, and there's an era of games I think have just been forgotten. Some of them are available there, but the prices are hiked up just because GOG's done their job. They then price the game at £10, where you can go and pick this game up for 50p. And some of these games are hundreds of hours of content. A 50p game might have 20, 30, 40, 50 hours, especially some of the RPGs out there are huge. So for me, I think it's an era of gaming and a console game that shouldn't be forgotten about, right? It's really important. I think in the world of gaming, it's easy to get very excited about the Nintendos and the Segas and all the rest of them. And of course, they're awesome. They're absolutely awesome, and I love them. But PC will always have a very fond place in my heart, and therefore that's why I went out and built this machine. I built myself a physical XP machine to run all of these games on, so I could go out, hunt for them, buy them, and play them. But I didn't want to emulate it. I didn't want to just go and get a virtual box or something like that and just run Windows on it on my modern PC, which I have many of those as well. I wanted to do it with original hardware, just like those out there that love doing it with original consoles, and I'm definitely one of those as well. So look, I'm going to flip to some other videos, some other clips of me going through the actual physical hardware, what's in the machines and describing them, and then I'm going to flip over to actually showing you it running and running some games. But look, any questions that come up on this as you're watching, stick them below and I'll definitely answer as best I can. So I hope you enjoy what's about to happen, and I'm sure it cuts in any second now. But yeah, enjoy the video and watch it through and let me know your thoughts at the end, all right?
Right, so this was the first machine, and this is probably familiar to some people, what's known as a wise box or a thin client. You would have heard these in offices where you didn't have a full fat PC. I mean, if I put my hand next to this, you'll see how small this thing is. It is a very tiny PC, and these were often strapped to the back of monitors or under desks to run thin applications, they'd have been called back in the day, and they're still used now and that in call centers and stuff like that, but they don't run in the operating system themselves. They talk over the internet, talk over the network, sorry, to a server farm somewhere to pull back the systems that you'd have been running in that office. And this has now been modded so it's actually running an operating system itself. As you can see here, this hard drive that I've got in my hand, if you didn't know what this is a hard drive. You'll find these in all sorts of consoles, laptops, everything. So nothing special. This is what's now running the operating system. Previously, this wouldn't have been inside this machine, and it would have received this information over the network. But just for those people that want to know, there's an AMD processor in here. It's a 1.6 megahertz processor. It's a T50N, I believe, but it's basically a dual core. So it's running two processors on two cores on a single processor. It's got 4 gig of RAM in there. You're running Windows XP 32-bit. 4 gig of RAM is the most you can register on that operating system anyway, and it will actually see about 3.5 gig of RAM registered, and that's normal. So when you boot up your machine, don't worry too much that you're only seeing 3.5 gigs, because that's pretty standard. That's how much it's actually able to register. I think some of it's used in reserved memory and so on and so forth. Probably the thing you will notice, and hopefully someone notices, there are no fans in this machine. So this machine, when turned on, it's absolutely silent, which is pretty handy if you don't want to hear things. And that's what this pretty sort of, significant sized heat sinks for, and this cooling pipe here is to transfer all the heat that's coming from the processor, which is underneath here, to these fins so that it can cool naturally with what's called passive cooling. Anything else to tell you about this machine? I mean, apart from on the back, because it's fairly old, you remember you're running Windows XP, you're going to get your USB ports, you're going to get a display port here, which is for older monitors, and you're going to get what's called a DVI port. It doesn't come with HDMI naturally, but very common are these DVI to HDMI converters. So the only thing you then have to be aware of is that because that's DVI, it's not going to pass sound. So today, if you plugged in a HDMI enabled device, not only do you get video, but you also get audio over that HDMI connection. This will only pass the video. So if you want to get audio out, you need to connect one of the audio port on the front there, that green one. So if you're trying to capture audio from this, either you need to be plugging a pair of headphones in there or a set of speakers, or if your capture card allows, and I have a couple, you need to use the analog audio in to be able to capture footage from this. Otherwise, all you're going to get is the video and no audio. The hard drive, I think, is a small one. It's, what is it? It's it might be 80 gig, I think. Yes, it is 80 gig. But a Windows XP installation is probably smaller than 5 gigabytes. So plenty of room to then put a whole bunch of games on here. Now this is not ideal, but this is just resting inside the machine. There is no mount points. This PC was never meant to have a hard drive in it. So there is no way to mount this. Now, if you wanted to, you could run the cables out the back and stick this inside of a caddy to the side of the machine. That would probably be a much more secure way of doing it. But I've found that just by sliding it into the machine there and leaving it, I've never had any problem. When this got shipped to me, this came disconnected, so it was easy to reconnect. But yeah, this is the first Windows XP machine that I've put together, and it runs, it's got an AMD graphics inbuilt in it, which is, again, for the time, if you were trying to run modern day games on this, you wouldn't have a hope in hell. But you're talking about games from 1998 through to about 2005, and it runs those absolutely fine. So yeah, this was the first machine, but this isn't what I finished with, and I'll be coming over to that machine very shortly. But yeah, any questions on this, let me know. This kind of Dell Wise, you can look this up on eBay. You can pick these up for very little money. The memory upgrade, I went from, I think, 2 gig to 4 gig, and it cost me £6 to buy the memory sticks. Yeah, it's super easy. So any questions on this one particularly, this is for someone who wants to go in that sort of entry level. If you want to fire up a Windows XP machine really easily and start playing some games from that kind of era, yeah, go for it. And you can add things like a USB CD-ROM to this. You could add a USB floppy drive to this. You could add pretty much a joystick, anything you liked, and it would work perfectly fine. But yeah, that's that one. And then I'm going to swap over to the bigger boy in a sec. Okay, so now we're looking at the machine I'm now swapped over to recently after building that first machine I've showed you. This is the big black box, as I've called it, for my new Windows XP era gaming. So I'm talking 1998 right through to 2008, the end of XP, as it were, before things started going to more modern operating systems, as you expect to see them today, Windows 7 and then so on and so forth. This PC has actually been able to run Windows 10, but if you put a modern video game on it, yes, it will run, but you've got to set your expectations at the right level, around whatever graphics you're going to see. But for Windows XP, this thing's a monster. This is like having a PlayStation 5 running PlayStation 2 games. Okay, the hardware is very over-spec'd for that period, but it does mean that I am able to crank everything to the max. So no matter what game I pick up, I can stick all the settings to the max, the highest resolution, the highest graphics fidelity, and all the rest of it, and the game will run buttery smooth, which is what you want, because, hey, back then I couldn't afford, as a kid, to have those kind of machines. I'd have to run medium settings for things and all this sort of stuff, so I never got to see the games at the level that I would want to. Now I'm almost, you know, going back but using future machinery. So I'm able to play it at the highest and everything and see it running super smooth. And all of this is super cheap and old. So this is using old parts, but you get my point. I'm using old parts to run old games and getting the best quality possible. There's no point doing that on a really modern Windows 10 machine because they won't run unless you're using something like GOG.com, because they do all the hard work. So yeah, I'll try and show you around this a little bit and tell you what's in here, just to give you an idea. So down the bottom here we've got 2 hard drives. These aren't mounted yet because I don't have the mounting bracks, but I'm going to be getting those. You've got a 60 gig hard drive, really small in this day and age. But as I said, Windows XP is about 5 gig. And that's the only thing that gets installed on this drive, just the operating system. Because it means I can wipe this anytime I like. If I'm getting any problems, I can wipe it. And it saves all the data on the other drive. So the other drive here is actually a 750 gig drive. And that's got all the games on it, right? So I take the CDs, I install them, and that's got all the data on it. So I can wipe this whenever I like. And this is always going to be in good shape. You've then got obviously your power supply here. This doesn't have to be anything special. It just happens to be a 500 watts, but for the hardware we're running, more than capable. This is obviously the key thing, the graphics card, and this is a GeForce GTX 660. Back in its day, it was a monster, but obviously in today's standards, it's nothing. But to XP, this thing is unheard of. This is 2012 hardware being used for 2005, no, 1998 to 2005 level of gaming. So you can imagine this runs everything without even breaking a sweat, frankly. If we come over the top, we can see the main board in there, and obviously you can also see the processing unit. So underneath there we have an AMD FX 6300, which I believe is a 6-core processor. So this is back again, if you were to go back and buy a PC in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, you might pick up a dual core processor. Most of them are going to be single cores, like your Pentium 4s. But then came along the Intel dual core 2 Duo. I butchered that name, but you get the point. And those are when you started seeing these dual core processors and everyone lost their mind. Well, that one's got 6 cores. So again, as far as the computer's concerned, it's got more brains than it could possibly need. It is only one you can't really see it, but there is only 1 stick of RAM in there. There used to be 2, so you used to have 8 gig of RAM. It was pointless because Windows will only ever see 4 unless you're running the 64-bit operating system. But that was a server-based operating system. It's not very good with video games and stuff like that. So I took that stick out because I was finding some instabilities. So rather than running 2 sticks for what's called dual channel, I'm just running a single stick of 4 gig of RAM for single channel. But again, you know, you're just not going to notice the difference when you're running the kind of games that I'm running on this. It's got other bits and pieces in there, like a CD-ROM. I like a slot CD-ROM, so it's got one where you just slide the CDs in, rather than the CD drawer coming out. And that's it, really. I can't think there's anything else in there that really you need to know about. Obviously the main board, but you're not going to get a processor without a main board. I will put the details of this stuff below. I've looked on Amazon and eBay. You can buy all of these components. They are not expensive whatsoever. I think the most expensive part is probably the card, and even then you're talking maybe 50 quid, if that, if I'm honest. So this whole machine, you could build this machine for, I don't know, just over £100, I reckon. No worries at all. And put it together. And the important thing is, this is the most important thing. I should have said this right at the beginning. If you're going to build yourself a machine for the Windows XP era, any components you buy, you need to find Windows XP drivers for. So the only reason I can do this is because NVIDIA, who created this card, obviously EVGA created the card, but the architecture it's based on is NVIDIA's, and they provided, even though this wasn't sold back in XP's day, this has Windows XP drivers, and that's what you need. And the same with the processor, the same with the board, the same with the the sound card and all the other bits and pieces that are in there. So whatever you pick up, first of all, get yourself on Google, search for, does that component, get the product number, get the whatever it is, have XP drivers. If it's got an XP driver, you're golden. If it's only got a Windows 7 driver, you're probably going to find yourself some problems. All right, so that's why I'm able to do this, is because all of the components in here have Windows XP drivers, therefore I can install Windows XP as an operating system and I can run those classic games without emulating or going to GOG.com or any other bits and pieces out there. I'm able to get the original CDs, chuck them in the drive, and away I go.
This is the machine up and running. So I'll give you a quick tour around. So again, you can see everything I've been speaking about in the other sections. Hopefully I'm doing this bit after I showed you the hardware, because then I can talk you through the hardware. So yeah, hopefully some people this is a bit familiar. The old green hills of Windows XP. So yeah, if I fire up the properties of the machine, you can see here we've got that 6-core processor, which is, you know, just blowing the minds of anyone who had a PC back in 2002, 2003, and even beyond that, maybe, where it was either a single core or maybe you were lucky enough to have an Intel 2 Duo. But yeah, the 6-core processor, and it does see all 6 cores. So if I bring up Task Manager here, you can, you can wonder at this machine going, this is Windows XP having a whole heyday here with 6 cores. It's losing its mind currently. It is running Service Pack 3, which is the last service pack to come out for Windows XP, and you can get a download of this. So, the internet. You can still find either the full install of Windows, and maybe if people want, I'll talk through that as well. Let me know below if you want to know how I actually went through the install process, because it can be a bit tricky, but there are some tools out there. But you can get Windows XP with Service Pack 3, so you can do it in one go rather than going Windows XP and then installing the service packs. You can just go straight to the end basically and do that. You can see here that it's that 3.5 gig of RAM. As I said, Windows is a bit funny with how much it'll actually display. So there's no point going above 4 gigs. So if someone tells you their retro PC's got 20 gig of RAM, who cares? It's not going to see it. It's a 32-bit operating system. You don't want to go to the 64-bit operating system because most of your games won't work. So stick with the Windows 32-bit, and 4 gig of RAM. Most of these games are looking for 256 megabytes of RAM, let alone gigabytes, so don't worry about it, you've got loads. The hardware wise, as I said before, you've got the graphics card as we talked about before. So there's the GTX 660, again very high end for this level of gaming. The processor, as I said before, is showing. You do have a network adapter on that main board, but the main point being, when you first install Windows, lots of these will have a yellow exclamation mark against them because it won't know what the hell they are, and that's why you need those Windows XP drivers. So any hardware you're choosing to use in this system, get on Google, search for that component, and look for support and Windows XP. Is there a Windows XP driver? Yes. If there's not, I'd probably bin it off and look for something else, all right? Because it's probably going to give you more problems than it's worth. But yeah, you can see it's all here. I'm capturing this right now through my Elgato HD60S, and that's also got an analog in, so I'm able to capture audio as well. So if I was to click the little button down here and give it a bit of a ping, hopefully you're hearing it ping in the background. That's not coming out of speakers that are attached to the machine. That's coming through my Elgato into this PC, which is obviously the streaming PC, and that's why you can hear it. Not much else to show on here, obviously, apart from the fact that it does have those 2 discs that I spoke about. So you've got that C drive, which is where Windows is actually installed. Means I can wipe it anytime, reinstall it. Windows XP is a pretty solid system, but if it ever does have issue, I can reinstall it. And as you can see there, I'm barely using any of it up. It's a 55 gig after formatting hard drive, and I've got 49 gig available. And then I've got the D drive, which is where all the games are. So that was a 750 gig. You lose 50 gig in formatting. That's the way of the world. And as you can see there, I've got 632 gig available, even though I have all of these games. And this isn't even all of them yet. I'm slowly going through the pile to install games on there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, let's fire up a game and I can show you what I mean by sort of, never having to worry about graphics ever again. Back in the day, you would have to tweak which resolution you were running. So these are physical games, so you can pick these up in charity shops, CEX, for £1. These are the cheapest games on the market. you know, I know we're here about the retro consoles and everyone loves the retro, and I love the retro consoles as well, but don't leave the PC out in the cold. The PC era of gaming, that late 90s, early 2000s, was an absolute golden age for the PC. And while people were squabbling around getting frames and getting games to look good, the PC had it won hands down. It could do bigger resolutions at faster frames per second, with volumetric lighting, with all sorts of cool wizardry being done by the graphics engines that are out there, and it could blow the socks off of anything in the other in the other genres for sure, without a doubt. So let's fire up this. Oh, hang on, I've got a CD in the CD-ROM. I should have checked that. So we need to eject that. So we'll right click here. We'll say eject. I was installing a game. So we're going to chuck this in. Now this is the curse of a live demo. This better blimmin' work. Otherwise I'm doing a fancy edit. I'm fairly confident. So we're firing up Medal of Honor Allied Assault. There we go. So we press play. And again, it's got faster drives, faster everything, frankly. So this should load up nice and speedy. We're going to get this come up because it thinks it's got Windows. It thinks it's got a firewall installed, but it hasn't. So it just needs to do one. Now this will pop to full screen in a second, so don't worry about that. It would do if there we go. There we go. I need to click the window. Okay, so this is where you get to go. So back in the day, you'd have come in here and you'd been like, oh, is my PC strong enough? You'd have come into the options. You'd have gone into graphics, which is over here. So video. And you'd have gone, oh, 800 by 600. That will probably do. Oh, I could never run this at the highest resolution. Now, actually, this is a lie. This won't actually work. But you would never have stuck it on this. You'd never have gone, oh, let's go 32-bit, or texture detail, let's go medium or low. You wouldn't have stuck it on high. You wouldn't have gone 32-bit. You wouldn't have gone trilinear texture filtering. Don't be crazy. But we're going to. Who the hell cares? You know, weather effects, you must be mad. No, we aren't mad. We're doing it. We're ticking all of the buttons. Maybe I should have picked the other one. Hang on a sec. I've gone into the problem is I'm running this in widescreen. I picked a non-widescreen. Let's go here. I knew if I did that it'd crash. Okay, this doesn't count. Don't look at this. Look away from the screen. We're rerunning it. It's okay. It's okay. This was the beauty of running games on PC. You had to twiddle. You had to muck about a little bit. Told you I can cut this if I need to. I do remember when I picked a game that I know crashes when you put it on the highest quality setting. I'm gonna guess that's because there's a patch out there. I mean, you know, this is what happened with all old video games, right? If you didn't patch it correctly, you could have these problems. So we're gonna go back in again, and we're gonna pick a resolution that I know works, right? And then we're gonna whack everything up to top. We're gonna go high. We're gonna go high. We're gonna go trilinear. We're gonna go wall decals. We're gonna pick weather effects. We're gonna do all of these things. We're gonna apply that. That's it. And then we're going to go into advanced, and we're even going to pick everything in here as well. We're going to say, yeah, we want full models. We want shadows complex. We want everything. We want max details on the terrain. We want the highest model detail. We want effect details, whatever these things are. Stick it on max. We want high. We want static decals. We want real dynamic lighting. We want volume entity lighting. We want volumetric smoke. Oh, we want it all. I want all of the things. There we go. Now we're going to get out there and we're going to run the game. I need to get a mouse mat. That's the thing I don't have at the moment, is a mouse mat. There we go. We're going to jump in some training. And now you'll see. When did this... there we go. Now, if I was doing this on a PC back in the day, when did this come out? This was a game sort of around the 2000s, right? this thing would be running at a few frames per second. But as you can see, buttery smooth. All of the graphics are out there. It looks fantastic. I forgot what it's asking me to do. Look at the 2 towers. I need to look at the towers. There's another tower. There's another tower. There we go. We got it. We got it.
Good. Now press your forward key to move in the direction you're facing.
We're going. We're going.
Press your backwards key to move back.
There we go.
Press strafe left to move left and strafe right to move right.
We're strafing.
Using these 4 keys together with the mouse is critical to your success against
Yeah.
the enemy.
And if you've not done a first-person shooter with a mouse and keyboard, you haven't lived.
Current objectives. When you complete an objective, it's checked off on this list.
There we go.
Your current objective is highlighted in yellow. Now notice that the arrow on your compass is pointing at one of the towers.
There we go.
The arrow points to your current objective. As you near your objective, the ball bearings on...
Let's exit. Let's exit this and chuck another one in. You saw that. Apart from the little glitch there with me picking the wrong resolution. And I don't know why that is. I will work it out because actually I should be able to run it at that resolution. So I don't know why it's acting that. This mouse is acting up because I need to get a mouse pad for it. But we're getting by. Right. Let's pick another one quick and then we can end this video, can't we? We can. The mouse is beginning to get on my wick because I don't. Let me find something that acts as a mouse mat. That'll act as a mouse mat. Right, we'll grab one last game from the list. What about this? What about Blade Runner? Let's chuck Blade Runner in there. As if I remember to install it. You'd think I'd do these things prepared, but why be prepared? There we go. So we just press play. And because you've got that modern drive, you've got a modern hard drive in here and a faster processors than you would have had. Not to today's standard, but compared to then, these games fire up really fast, and the loading is reduced and all these things. So you're still using hardware from back in the day, but it's ahead of where the actual games are expecting it to be. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, really, without just running it on an emulator. Now, I know someone out there is going to say, oh, I could just do this with an emulator, and I could just do this with, VirtualBox or whatever. But for me, there's something special about keeping this hardware alive, keeping it running, knowing that it's physically there, the graphics card, the processor, all this stuff. I'm grabbing and picking up games that I had in my youth, like Freelancer here, a game I absolutely bloody loved back in the day. I'm getting to use actual peripherals, like my good old joystick I had from back then, the Cyborg Evo, which is an awesome joystick for your flight simulators and stuff like that. For me, there's something special in it, just like for many others. There's nothing quite like playing on an actual Super Nintendo or a Mega Drive or an Atari 2600. For me, this feels that same time. My PC gaming in that era was where I was at. It's what I really enjoy playing every single day. So I'm really happy that I'm able to go back and do some of that, but for real, for actual hardware. And also I was a bit of a nut about building PCs as well, so it's nice to know that I can still throw things together in a box and get stuff working and keep my hand in the game. But yeah, look, this is, we've now got Blade Runner up and running. And these games are cheap, man. I mean, they are 50p, they are £1, they are hundreds of hours of enjoyable gameplay for next to nothing, and yeah, there we go. I hope you enjoyed the vid. If there's any questions about any of this below, any of this I've just done and talked about in the various bits and pieces that I've just been going through, please ask below, get involved. I'm happy to share my knowledge. anything you're stuck with or anything you're thinking about doing, ask, and I'll see if I can help. All right. But yeah, for me, this is it. This is what I love. As much as I love everything else in gaming, and I hope people don't overlook the PC, you know, because it is a bloody awesome gaming system for sure, and you should check it out. Right, I hope you enjoyed the video. Give us a like, give us a sub, that would be awesome. But more importantly, comments below would be amazing. Yeah, and I will speak to you all soon. All right, I'm gonna go and play Blade Runner now. Bye.